What's up, Elite Army? This is your kinda well, kinda toxic host, Sarah Rittendale, bringing you another episode of Wellish. Shannon McBride, welcome to Wellish. I'm so excited to have you with me here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I really wanted to have you on the show, as we were talking about beforehand. I really want to have you on because as we're coming to the end of our 28 Days of Self-Love series, I really think it would be impactful for people to hear about a transformation story, to hear live, living proof that you can go from this place of, as you described in your questionnaire when you filled it out for to be on the show, a place of self-hatred, and really get to a place of genuine self-love and a place of success. So if you don't mind, if you could tell me a little bit about yourself, what is it that you do right now? I know we were just talking about your mindset coaching.
Yeah, so I am Shannon McBride, and first of all, I'm a mum of two, so that's mostly what I spend my day doing. But yeah, I am a mindset coach, so I work with predominantly children and teenagers, doing a lot of mindfulness sessions and a lot of work to improve their confidence and their emotional resilience. And then I also work with parents with the motivational side of things, goal setting. Sometimes it's just emotional support for the parents as well, and implementing mindfulness techniques. And I'm also just in my final year of my social work degree. So I went for my degree a few years ago, took a break, started the business, and now I'm just back. So I'll be a newly qualified social worker in the summer.
Awesome. That's so exciting. I love that. Cool. So if you don't mind, I kind of want to start at the beginning, which is typically not the way that I start my interviews because I think it's a really heavy place to begin. But if you don't mind sharing kind of what your low point really looked like as a starting point, and we can progress through to where you're at now and the success that you're having in your self-love.
Yeah, sure. So I think as a teenager growing up, I never really, I think I'd always struggled with my mental health. I just didn't realize. So I think I was always very low mood. I really always struggled with my mindset and all really negative thoughts, loads of anxiety. I just didn't know what it was back then. I just thought that was normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my son quite young. So I was 19 when I had my son, and I was already quite depressed then. And so it triggered just this really bad postnatal depression. And I just went into almost like a spiral that I don't think I really came out of for a lot of years. And it was just a really difficult time. But on the surface, I was still going to work. I was really happy. I don't think anyone really realized. And I speak to people now that knew me then, and they were just like, oh, I just had no idea. It was just on the inside. Like I absolutely hated myself. My mind was constantly negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts. I just didn't want to be here. Everything just felt so difficult. And I look back sometimes now and I think, gosh, why did you find that so hard? But it was just so difficult. Getting through the day was difficult. And then I kind of just carried on. I just didn't know any different. And we talk a lot now about mental health, but they're just really, so we're going back maybe 12 years, 13 years. It just wasn't the same. We just didn't have, I remember the midwife coming around, so are you okay? And I said, yeah. And then she goes, because I've got a nice house, I've got a partner, I'm working. It just looked pretty much like, oh, she's fine.
Not all together, yeah.
And I think I remember one day Googling signs of depression, and I read them all through and I thought, well, yeah. And then it said, go to your GP if this, and it was about self-harm or something. And so I hadn't done it, but I definitely had thoughts about like not being here. And it said, go to your GP. And I thought, okay, so I really should go to GP. I used to book appointments all the time, and then I'd cancel, and then I'd book, and then I'd cancel, because I kept telling myself, but you look fine and you are fine. And when it was really bad, I think, okay, get help. And then when you've got help and you get ready for the day and you've got to go to the doctors, you think, well, they're not going to believe you. Or then I was scared if I said how bad it really was, or they'd take my kids away, or think that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just used to tell myself all the time that I was, that no one would believe me maybe, or that it wasn't that bad, even though I knew it was bad.
Yeah, right. So what advice then would you give to somebody? Because it sounds like you almost had a hard time prioritizing your own needs. What would you tell somebody that struggles with that? Because I can totally picture the back and forth and convincing yourself that you're okay. So what would you say to somebody that needs to prioritize their own needs?
Yeah, I think definitely, like, when you feel that you are struggling, it's to like just accept that, that you are struggling. It's not going to be forever, but you really are struggling, and that is completely okay. Because I think what I kept doing is pushing through it. and pushing through it. But each time I pushed through it, it was worse when I got low again. So I'd almost get up a little bit and then get down, but I was down longer. So I'd spend days in bed, I'd be crying, I'd be angry. And it was just such a difficult top, like your mind, your body, everything stress does to the body. So I think it's just to really accept where you are at, and it's okay to get help. And I know everybody says that it's okay not to be okay, but truly it really is. Like, it's okay if it's all gone wrong. It's okay if it's a mess. It's okay if you don't like your life. It's okay if you don't like your partner. It's okay if you're struggling as a parent and you don't enjoy it. Like, that's fine. It's okay if your friends don't feel like your friends anymore. It's okay if these were all things that happened to me. I was in debt. All of these things are fine. But I think it gets really hard on you if you keep pushing through and keep pushing through, keep pushing, because it'll all catch up with you eventually. And then that's kind of what I literally had like a complete breakdown, and I just couldn't cope anymore. And that's kind of where I started rebuilding from. But yeah, I think if I gave anybody advice, it's just to accept, just acknowledging and accepting, and yeah, just not to be hard on yourself. Life just throws things at us at any point in time. It's not, you're not failing. But I think as soon as you can help.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's such good advice, to just accept and acknowledge. And I feel like I always say that the first step of being able to accomplish anything or to move into any sort of wellness or best self or self-love is that you have to have the awareness behind it. And so I feel like that's really what that speaks to is, you have to, accept that this is where you're at and become aware of, like, okay, I obviously am struggling. What happened that, like you said when you were younger that you weren't very aware? What made you aware?
I think so that kind of continued, that up and down, just being low for ages. And in 2018, there was a family member passed away, a relationship broke down. I was in a huge amount of debt, and everything just it was just one of them where I went down, I just couldn't get back up. And I think that I kind of pair the two timings together, that I almost had like a spiritual awakening at the same time. And they kind of say that mental health crises look very similar. And it was just this weird period of time where I started to read a lot and just, it was just learning. It's like I just went on this weird journey of learning, and I started to become really self-aware from, reading. I think it was just a lot of reading, learning how the brain works, understanding trauma, what trauma looks like in the body, what even is trauma. Some things that I thought trauma meant like something horrific has happened, but trauma can be bullying, trauma can be small things, trauma can be lots of little different things. So it was really understanding like what trauma was, how it impacts the body. And then I started to understand myself, and I was like, oh my God, it's just like all these light bulbs started going off. And then the more that happened, the more I was just like, okay, let's do this, let's get better. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
I totally relate to that, because it is like you get to this point. I probably was not as low as you were, but obviously I went through stuff too, just because that's how I got to starting a podcast about it. But I relate to that, and I never really connected those dots, that it's like, I'm sitting here like, fuck, I can't live my life like this anymore. So you start reading about it and learning about it, and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm coming more aware. I like that. So you mentioned that you didn't want to bring it up to people or even a doctor because you were afraid of feeling judged, or like people wouldn't believe you. And so you went through all of this self-hatred alone. What would you tell that version of yourself with the knowledge that you have now?
I think I would definitely say that this is not you. Like, all the things who I thought I was and all the things I hated about myself, that isn't you. Like the things, for an example, like I would usually be really reactive to my son, and I felt like I really struggled to connect. And I spent every single night crying. I hated myself as a mum. I thought he would grow up to hate me, and all these different things. But the way that I was feeling, that was just unhealed pain. Do you know what I mean? Like, anger is a lot of the time, it's just unhealed pain. And it's like, I was just, it wasn't me. That's not you. That's not who you are. And because I used to give myself such a hard time, and I was so horrible to myself. So I think I would just say, like, it's not, and you're doing your best. I really was doing my best, but I would never tell myself that. I thought I was the worst person in the world. I thought it was horrible, all these horrible things. So I would definitely say, like, this isn't you. This doesn't define who you are.
That's
and you're
interesting.
doing
Right. Well, that's interesting about you saying you're doing your best, because I really feel that, obviously your best changes. And, that's the point that you were at in your life. And that's the point that you were at in your mindset. and your mental health journey and all of these things. And it's like, so at that time, you were doing your best, but because you know that you're capable of more, and because you know that you can love yourself more and improve more, that you're like, no, this sucks. I'm horrible. And I need to align with the way that everybody else sees me, which probably contributed to the image that you were putting
Mm,
on for everybody else, because it was like, this is who I want to be and this is who I can be, but I just am not that person right now. So I love that you say that.
that's so true. That's really so true because I had such a thing about, yeah, like everything's fine. I'm coping as a mum. My relationship's fine. Love, everything's great. And I would take on everything at work. And it was just, I was taking on a course. I was always doing something, always doing. I don't think I ever had a day where I was just sitting because I couldn't sit with myself. I hated being on my own. I hated my head. So I was just non-stop, just wearing myself out.
Yes, I can so picture that for myself too. That's funny. Well, it's not funny, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you have any words to help people better understand or trust that it's possible to get them to a place they completely love themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I'm living proof because, and there's so
I
many
agree.
small, like, for example, I went to uni the other day and I was walking along and I was eating an apple and I was just so happy walking along eating an apple. And I recorded myself because I thought there's no way I would ever have walked along in public eating an apple. And I know it sounds so funny, but I would usually be so self-conscious just because I think people are looking at me and like, I feel really awkward, but I was just so carefree. And yeah, I mean, even to come on here and talk to you, I'd never have done that. I do loads of networking. I won a business award. I've been up on stage talking. Um, I've written about my journey on like a blog thing before. There's just loads of things I do with my kids. Like I said, I could never go out on my own. I go out all the time on my own. I love being on my own. So yeah, I think it's 110% possible, 200% possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it shows up in just small little ways, like being on your own and your confidence and just who you are as a person. You just keep evolving and evolving and evolving and evolving, and it just gets better and better. It's definitely.
Yeah, I love it. Tell me about, I know we talked about it a little bit, but tell me about your breaking point. So you had mentioned you lost a family member and you just started like reading, but what happened that triggered you to begin to learn yourself again? Like, what did that look like? I know you, again, you mentioned the reading, so that's kind of where you began, but can you walk me through that process?
So I think it was a build up. My relationship kind of struggling. There was a lot going on just before the passing of the family member. So it was quite a lot of tension in the family. There was just a lot of pressure on my shoulders. I was in my second year at uni doing a full-time social work role. Had two young kids. I was on my own. So it was just the pressure it was just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was just so emotionally overwhelmed, and all of the years of me just pushing through, this time it just snapped and I couldn't. And it was almost like the universe was like, not this time. You are not shoving that all back in that box. We are dealing with it now. And yeah, I just had to sit with it. And I remember one particular day, because I couldn't sleep, so I'd stay up, then I'd take the kids to school and I'd literally put a coat on, put boots on and just drive them and come back. And I'd always get back on the sofa and I'd just cry all day. I'd just sob into the back of the sofa. And this particular day, I was driving to the school and my car just stopped. And I was like, oh my God. And it just wouldn't turn back on. And we're in the traffic, school traffic. So these men came from behind, pushed me onto the pavement, and I had to get the kids out. And it was only a 10-minute drive, but it's an hour walk. So I had to walk the kids to school, still in my pajamas, big coat on, drop them off. And I was like, okay, so I've got no phone, no bank card, no money, nothing. I literally just left the house to drop them. So I had to do this whole walk all the way back for an hour. And it was so weird because it was like the sun and the birds and all this stuff that I hadn't been present for. I'd just been in this cycle of like crying, just getting it through the day, feeding the kids, getting them to bed, doing it again. And I felt like a spring in my step. And I was, oh my God, nature. And I was like, I just felt really different. And when I got in, I kind of came up the stairs, and normally I would just go to the sofa and lay in the back of the sofa and cry. And I sort of sat on the edge of the sofa and was like, okay, like, what do we do now? And I just felt really different. And I felt this sense of peace. I have never, ever, ever felt it. If I struggle now, I always go back to this moment because I just sat there and it was just so weird. It was only a glimmer, but it was, the house was silent and I lived by a park. So there's no noise, no traffic, nothing. And within myself, I felt peace. I'd never, ever felt it, ever. And I think this is probably about 5 years ago. So I was, 25, 26. And I just sat with it. And it was such a weird experience. And then I thought, okay, well, you can do the washing up. So I did a bit of washing up. Then I was like, okay, well, you can sort the washing out. So I did a bit of that. And then I thought, okay. So then I started Googling, what did I want to Google? Volunteering. I wanted to do some volunteering for something. And yeah, I just went on this thing of, I got rid of my telly in my bedroom. I was like, that's it. The telly's going. And it all did seem quite random and manic, but I was just in this, I just would get prompted to do like find this. But I think my friend actually gave me a book about Zen. I started reading about Buddhism and things like that. And then I went to, I had to go to the post office actually. And I was in the post office and the queues, it was really like overwhelming. So I got out, and by the pencil cases, there was this book called The Mindful Way Through Depression. And it was an 8-week program. And I opened it, and as I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, it's talking to me. Like, it's literally speaking to me. And it was all about like how you feel and all these things. I got the book, went home. That was it. I was obsessed. I had to keep restarting. So you have to do, it's like meditation, and it's a workbook, and you go through it. Because as lovely as this all sounds, I was still really, really struggling. So I'd have like good days, and then it would just be bad. And I'd be like, oh my God. But then I would get back into my book and I'd read a bit. And then it might be a week or two. I just really struggled to get into the meditation. But what I didn't realize is I was doing stuff. I was just chipping away slowly. But because I wasn't having this like massive transformation that I thought I would have, I was like really giving up and being like, oh my God, it's not working. But slowly by slowly, even each page that I read, sometimes I'd have to read it 10 times because my brain was just, I couldn't take it in. But slowly, yeah, I read that book, did that eventually, did the meditation, learned so much about mindfulness. That book is actually so amazing about like learning about the brain and like how it all works. And then it would just be, I did a course about trauma. Then I did my mindfulness course to teach children. And in doing the teaching training, you have to do the activities yourself. So I spent an intensive, like, I don't know how many days it was, but you're actually doing like non-stop mindfulness, meditation, sharing. And again, at the time I thought nothing was happening, but it really was. Then I was doing it with my children at home. And yeah, it was just kind of building and building and building.
That's insane. That's awesome, first of all. And I just, it's so funny because it's just so relatable. And this is exactly what I was talking to you about before we started recording, when I said that I love talking to people because it really just solidifies everything that I'm always trying to say. That's exactly what you just did. I feel like I fucking say that all the time. And that's literally real life what you did. So that's so cool. I think too that I really want to acknowledge how it really sounds, and I know you did say this, but it really sounds like just one day you were like, okay, like I got to get the ball rolling, but that it wasn't linear, that it was, you did fluctuate and do all of these things. So even though it does sound like, okay, one day I made the decision, which is sometimes I feel like how it can feel, but it is still definitely an up and down progress. You'd agree, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I didn't realize a lot of the things that I was doing. So say, for example, my car just stopped working that day. So I had to take a lot of buses and I had to do a lot of walking. So in me doing these walks, I didn't realize I was doing anything good for myself or like my mindfulness and all that. But I was doing it, but it didn't feel like it at all. I think my phone broke within that same period of time, and the telly in the front room went. So me and the kids used to just go for walks, but I was just reacting to life. I didn't realize it was actually really helping me. So yeah, it definitely didn't feel like it feels now at the time. It really was a process.
Do you still do the walks?
Yeah, we walk all the time. Yeah. There's something we started was called Quiet Time. And it was really weird because the telly broke. And I was walking back one day on this long walk, and there was a bunch of magazines on someone's wall. So I carried these massive bunch of magazines all the way home. And we started doing, we called it moonboarding, I think. And it was cutting up and made loads of collages. So every night before bed, we would just sit and we'd do like drawing, colour. And I was so into it. Like it would be bedtime and I'd be there like just mindfulness colouring or just cutting and making these vision boards. And we carried that all the way through. Even now, now we have quiet time, and it's like no screen, turn the telly off, about 10-15 minutes before bed, and we'll either do drawing, reading, whatever we're doing. Yeah, we do nighttime walks. They love it. I absolutely advocate for walking. Like I love walking. I have to go at least once a day. I have to go for a walk.
That's amazing. I love that. I love how you said you were reacting to life, and it's interesting how it was a reaction and now it's an intentional choice. I really like that. So I know you are mentioning that you didn't have a car, you didn't have a phone, you didn't have TV, and you had mentioned that when you had filled out the questionnaire about being on the show. And so I was really fascinated by that because obviously I think that's so not how our world operates, but it sounds like it wasn't well, I don't know, kind of at the same time that I was going to say it wasn't your decision to do that because it just happened and it was a reaction to life.
Yeah, but, I mean, my car broke. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, but I feel like you decided to not get it back. I mean, right? Or
yeah, I mean, my car broke and I didn't have the money to fix it. And I was also very much, if you think about like, I literally was just about able to get out of bed during the day. So the thought of ringing a garage, going to a garage, I didn't have it. I just left it. I literally just left my car. I was like, I can't. I am not doing it. We used to walk past the car and the kids would be like, "Oh, the car." Yeah, I know. Just keep walking. I just didn't have it in me to deal with it. The phone, so it was an iPhone. I smashed my iPhone, and so I just got, and I still got it today. A little, the £10 phones. And I was just on one of them. As long as the school could contact me or my mum could ring me or whatever. And I still have that now. Because sometimes I take a lot of social media breaks and I just have that. I've had that same phone number for probably like 15 years. And it's just a little SIM and a £10 phone. And I really love it. So I just had that. And the telly just broke in the front room and I just got on with it. It just became something that we just didn't even notice. We just get up in the morning, get ready, go out. I didn't use it in the day. I mean, I rarely watch telly now, and I think it's because of that time. And then the evening we didn't have it. Yeah, it just kind of phased it out. But it was half because I didn't have the money to deal with these things. And I think I just phased it. I just found another way. There was a bus at the top of the road. Then I bought a notebook, and this one I started journaling, and I write in this book all the way from the kids' school back once I learned the bus. And then that was my routine, just doing that. Like I said, the quiet time, that became the routine. The phone, that was fine. I just used the other phone. I didn't care about social media. Yeah, I accidentally did it through not being, yeah.
And you did it for 3 years?
So the telly, we had probably about a year and a half, maybe two, no telly. The phone, I did replace the phone once I started working. So I'd say up to a year I had that phone. I still got the phone now, but I have other phones. And the car, how long did I have no car for? The car was ages. I can't remember off the top of my head how long the car was, but I eventually did get another car. But yeah, we were just buses walking.
Would you do it again, or would you recommend it? Like, do you think it contributed to your journey?
Absolutely. I think it was so pivotal. It was that moment. It was when it all broke down. It was this little bubble of time. It's all these things happened at the same time. And I think me reacting to life, like I said, just getting on with it. I think that, yeah, just kind of like came out of that old life and into this other one that way. But in doing those things, I'd do it again. I love having no phone. I love it. People always say to me, I can't get hold of you. Yeah, I know. Don't want you to. But yeah, no, I like it. I mean, the car's convenient. I love having it. I mean, it was such hard work getting the shopping and then and the kids. But I think it builds your strength as a person as well, having to kind of just get in and get on with life. And I think where I was so used to just pushing forward, I had that in me to just be like, okay, we're going to do it. But it was in a healthier way this time, I think.
I think it's interesting too, because I feel like it really, at like almost, and obviously not completely because it's TV, phone, and car, but at almost like a caveman, quote unquote, level, makes you have to practice your problem solving skills. And so it's like it almost could translate into your mental health, that that you can like get through life with these problem solving skills and have to be able to do them in your own head at the same time is that's pretty kick ass. I like that.
And I really feel that I kind of like started to have almost like a spiritual awakening, if that's what you want to call it. But I mean, I say about the universe all the time. And I felt that in so many little ways in that period of time, I felt the universe was with me. And so it'd be silly things like we'd be running late for the bus and I'd be praying. And then we'd get there and the bus would just be there. And it'd just be like these funny little random bits along the way. And I'd be talking in my head like, please, please. And it would all start to work. And then it's motivating me to keep going and keep going and keep going because things were working out. And I was like, okay, this is fine. It's all fine. And yeah, I really felt like that's where my whole thing with the universe came from.
For sure. Is that so? Would that be what you would say is what you were starting to experience or feel when you started to recognize that you were beginning to feel better?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it would just be things were working out. Things weren't as heavy. Things weren't as difficult. I mean, there was still a lot of things inside me where I was struggling and my emotions were all over the place. But to be able to just walk in a park and feel at peace was insane. Like that moment I said, like I had never, ever felt peaceful. I'd always felt like my mind has never, ever stopped rushing. I've always felt inside like knots in my stomach, like tense, jaw, everything tense. Just a horrible feeling all the time. And so to feel kind of relaxed and at peace, I was like, oh my God, I need more of this. So the more things that I got the opportunity, whether it's in the park or walking the kids to school, I found these little moments and I thought, I'm just going to keep doing it. Keep going.
Yeah. What would you attribute that to? Just like a mindset shift or that reading or what?
I think the universe definitely took a lot of things out of my life that shouldn't have been there. And so there was the relationship I was in. If I look back now, it wasn't right. And that I put so much of myself into it, and it just wasn't right. And so even though my heart was so broken and I was so upset and I thought, oh my God, my life's over and what am I going to do now? And I'm never going to be, and all these things. But actually, that was so good because it took out, it kind of forced my hand in a way. Like, if you're not going to do this yourself, we're going to remove this person. And I think the grief helped me to release a lot of things that I'd been bottling up, because you're just so sad and it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And it's almost like, I remember one night just crying, but it was almost like I was throwing up. I'm not being sick. I'm just kind of like, just so much pain and sad and all this stuff's coming out. There are people in my life then that I don't speak to now, family members even, and it was the right thing. And I think it removed me from a lot of things that I feel were probably not for my best self. So I think that did also help. I kind of think that I was separated from a lot of things, maybe, and in that way of like not having a phone, not having social media, just being on my own. I think just really being by myself. I think that really helped me.
That's awesome. I think too that like it really speaks to, I don't know, it kind of just like, would you agree with this that it kind of just happens? Like you just have to feel through it and go through the cycle, and then eventually things will get better, and trusting that?
Yeah, I really think so. I kind of sometimes say about like when you're giving birth and you just have to kind of like, it's that like final push, and you really think like, oh my God, I'm going to try. But it is, you are going to get there. Like it's going to be, it definitely is always going to be okay. Always. It really is. But it just feels like hell. And I think you can do things to make it easier in the sense of letting go of things that are not for you. Because the more you hold on, the harder it's going to be. It's just going to hurt more. So I think in that way, the sooner and like we said at the beginning, it's that acceptance. Okay, this is how I feel. This is what's not working. This is what I'm struggling with. And if there are things that kind of need to be let go of, just to let them go, because they will eventually, I believe the universe will eventually bring things out of the way. I mean, I do tarot, and there's a card in the tarot deck called the Tower. And so a tower moment basically means like, it just comes in and like it's like a bulldozer in your life, and whatever's not meant to be there will just get wiped out, and you have to kind of rebuild. But you can almost help yourself in some ways of sort of letting go sooner. But
I like that because I just feel like it's not, I don't know, I guess maybe I didn't realize it enough, or it's not talked about enough, whatever the case is. I just feel that because as people, we try so hard to control things in our life, and it feels like our mindset is something that we should be able to control. And so it's kind of interesting because it is to a certain extent, like you do have to make an effort to show up for yourself and to try to make yourself feel better, but it really is a process that you have to allow yourself to feel through and trust that it'll eventually work out if you allow it to. That's awesome.
Like let go. And I think our mindset shifts and changes all the time. Like we're different people now than we were 5 years ago, 2 years ago. We will be different people in a few years. I think our mindset is always changing. But the healthier you get, the healthier your mindset gets. The healthier your mindset gets, the healthier your bank account gets, and your friendships get, and your relationships get, and everything's connected. But yeah, I definitely think you can. It's something that you can change. But I also feel that sometimes things around you we don't really have control of. And the more you do try and control it, the harder you're going to feel that resistance, and it doesn't feel nice.
Right, completely. If you had to give the journey that you went on a timeline, what would you give it?
So 2018 is when I'm talking about this phone, car, like all went wrong. So 2018 to say now 2024. I think from at least 2018 to 2020, I was in that not linear healing kind of messy cycle of all sorts. But even funny then, because when I look at myself then thinking, oh, you're so healed, I wasn't. So I think at each point I thought, oh, you're really healed now. No, you're not. So I think a good few years, but it did progressively get better and better and better. But I think at least a year of just absolutely letting go, letting it all be a mess, not knowing what I was doing, not having a clue about anything, just being in my emotions and just getting through the day. And I think at least a year of just doing that.
Yeah.
And then I think, I guess from 2018 till now, it's just been getting better and better and better.
I assume that you'd agree that healing doesn't stop, that there's, you're always going to be continuing on, which is kind of what I picked up from you saying. You look back and you're like, you weren't healed. What are you talking about? You're so much better now. So what do you think that point is? Like, where can you like talk about what it's like to be healed? Like, cause that you're really good now. You know that you really love yourself now, but there's always that progression. Can you speak on that at all?
Yeah. So I think in terms of healing, I feel like it comes in stages. So depending what's gone on in your childhood and your life in general, and what it actually is that you need healing, all of us are going to be slightly different. But for me, it was healing emotionally and also my triggers. So like I said at the beginning, I used to get really angry and really quickly, and I hated that about myself, and I thought that that's who I was, and it took a long time for me to understand, okay, where's this anger coming from? Okay, it's unhealed pain. What unhealed pain? Why do you have it? What does it mean? And in doing that, you're learning about yourself. But it's also very difficult to apply that practically in the day, like to not actually get road rage, or to not snap at the kids, or to not like feel anxious about something. So I think healing takes shape in that you start to look at what you don't like about yourself. So for me, it was my anger. And it was also that I struggled a lot with anxiety, like really badly. And so I think that you look at those type of things and think, okay, well, where does it come from? And the more you learn about it, you realize, okay, fine, this is where it's come from. What can I do to make it better? And you start working on these triggers, as that's what they're called. And the more that you do it, it's never gonna work straight away. So for example, my example would be like to stay calmer with the kids. It's not, even now, like I shouted this morning because I'm rushing around and I'm trying to get the Zoom on and we're doing all these things, but that is like 100% better than it used to be. And it's like learning, you're just constantly learning. Like you said, there's a lot of healing to do, I think emotional healing. But I think once you feel a sense of peace within yourself, and you're not, like I used to cry all the time, like just really, really emotional. Like I said, just my anger would go. I don't feel like that anymore. So I know internally I've healed, like emotionally I've healed. My mind feels at peace. My heart feels at peace. But I think once you've done that type of healing, then it's more about like learning and self-development. And that more so looks like, how do you want to be a better version of yourself? And that more takes shape in the sense of building new habits, new skills, new patterns. So I think it's definitely like a process of emotionally healing what's inside, and then get into a place where you feel like, okay, my mind's at peace, my heart's at peace, I feel confident, I like who I am enough, and I'm going to go forward. And then it becomes a self-development journey, and you're building
totally.
a strong base.
Totally. And that's interesting too, because it's like you're completely scrambled in that emotional downward spiral. And so that's such a good point, that it's like you have to get to a point that you don't feel like scatterbrained and all over the place and you're never at peace and everything sucks and I hate my life, and get to a place that you feel good and you feel confident and you feel like you love yourself, but there's always going to be things that you want to improve on. Like, maybe you've let anxious thoughts get the best of you sometimes. What can you do to work through that? Or how can you, I don't know, improve yourself to be better at speaking to people in crowds, whatever it is for you. So that's cool. I like that point of view, because it definitely is like, the intensity is there for the beginning and the emotional and mindset kind of stuff. But you're always going to be progressing, but it's not going to be so my life is over and I hate the whole thing. So that's cool.
Yeah, you can have like, you almost build a solid foundation to work from. Because I think if you try and do any of the other stuff when you're in the scramble, it's not going to work, and then you hate yourself more because you're like, why can't I do it? It's just never going to happen.
Completely. Oh, I love that. Building the foundation. That's totally it. I love it. What do you wish people understood about self-love?
That is possible. I speak to so many people, and I think that they don't actually think it's possible, or it's like, especially for me, people, not everybody, but it's very much, oh, it's all right for you. Especially people that don't really know where I've been, and that they meet me now, and it's like, oh, but I've had to get here. I've had to get myself here, and I think I want people to know that it is very possible, no matter what's going on or where you're at, or what you think, or any of those things. That it definitely is very, very possible. But also, there is hard work. It does take a lot of graft to put into yourself and heal yourself, and kind of, yeah, like go on that journey. And it is a journey. But yeah, it's possible for everybody. I want everybody to know that it's 110% possible. But it does take it's a little bit more than the nice things, which they're all good, like massage and spa days and pampering and all of that good stuff and journaling, all the things that we do talk about, they are excellent. But I think there is an element of like that scramble side of things, that kind of going deeper and the messy stuff. And it doesn't always look pretty. And self-love sometimes is just sitting with yourself when you're in a whole big mess and you're just like, oh, what was this day? Like that sometimes that's part of it. Yeah.
What would you contribute or maybe tribute is the right word, what would you credit your self-love to?
That's an interesting question. I think I always go back to that place that I was talking about where it all went wrong. And then I think that I connected with the universe. And I don't believe, I mean, when I say universe, I'm talking like a higher power, a higher self. People say God, I don't really know what I mean. But I just know I didn't get through that on my own. Like there's just no way. And I know all the little things that came along the way and the days where you're like, oh my God, like, did anybody else just see that? Because I know, I felt it. And I know there's so many, that happens all the time. And I know that definitely wasn't me. So I contribute it in a sense to whatever that is, that higher power, that other, my higher self, whoever, whatever, God, I don't know, but angels, anything. But definitely that was a huge big part of it. And I think my kids as well, like I always wanted to be better for my kids and I did really struggle. And I think that's why I used to beat myself up a lot. Because like you said at the beginning, it's like, you want to be better, but yeah, I just couldn't. So I think my kids were always up there of like, I want to help, like be better for them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's cool that because I'm the same as you. I talk about universe, higher self, that kind of thing, but it can translate into God or whatever it is people want it to be. And one time I interviewed somebody, I talked to somebody on here, and she is a religious person, and so she looks to God, and she was talking about how God gives you these messages and when he speaks to you, and I've heard people say that in the past, and I never resonated with that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Some guy speaking to you. It doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? And I'm not religious. So that's why I think that.
Yeah,
but then as she continued to talk about it, she was like, yeah, it's just like, you're going and you're living your life. And then all of a sudden something tells you to do something. Like there's this voice in your head or whatever it looks like for you that, you just have this like knowing that washes over you. And that's really how I felt about like starting the podcast, is that it was like, I cannot not do this. Like there is something in me telling me that I have to do it. And so I think that like that is totally what that is. So it's so cool to hear you say it, because it's just like, again, trusting the process and trusting yourself that, you'll be able to work through it, even though you probably have no self-trust at that headspace, but that there is something to lean on, if that is, I like how you said higher self or the universe, whatever. It's, eventually you're going to get through it and it's going to be okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Very cool. I want to know, so you had mentioned that, I mean, we've talked about it several times now, that, it looks like you have your life all together, but, there's still obviously moments that you get down or whatever. So I'm curious, for people that have they've created that foundation and now they're at the place that they love themselves and they're confident, but still get bogged down. I can picture feeling, when I wasn't maybe as healed as I am now, but definitely more healed than I was at the beginning, feeling like, God damn it, I'm like falling back into it. And I felt like I was doing so good. How can I, like, what's happening? What advice would you give to people that get like easily bogged down by setbacks and challenges in their life?
I think to remember that it's all part of the game. It's normal. That's what's supposed to be happening. So if you've definitely got to yourself where you're at a foundational point where you're like, okay, I'm ready, you're going to be tested. Life is going to test you. And as well, I think this is where other people come into it. So a lot of the time when you build the foundation, for me personally, it's a lot of inner work. It's a lot of being on your own, a lot of healing, a lot of that type of thing. When you're ready, I believe that other people come in as tests and challenges, because we learn so much from relationships, not even just romantic, but people that we work with, bosses, neighbors, anybody. And that's when you start to see your triggers, that you think, oh, I've done all my healing work and I've done all my triggers and I've done all my journaling and I'm really good now. Then you meet someone, they trigger all this stuff in you and you're like, what? Why have I got a setback? It's not. It's just showing you your next bit that you can't show yourself. So we meet people or something happens and we think, oh, damn, I've done it again, or I've self-sabotaged or whatever. You haven't. It's all part of the plan. Everybody that we meet is part of the plan. They're on the next. Every time we try and level up, there's some sort of a way to pass to get to the next level. And a lot of the time, it comes in the shape of another person or people, a lot of the people that I work with, they'll say, you know, like, I've had these friends for like 20 years and then this. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you're growing. It's because you're growing. And now that was supposed to happen. It was always going to happen. But it feels shit. It feels like, well, why? I've got my life together now. Why did they have to do this? But it is to help you to get to the next bit. So even though they seem like setbacks, they're not. They're just level ups. They just don't. It's just how we're looking at it. You're just leveling up.
I love that. I love that. And I love how you say it was always going to happen. Like that was always a part of your plan. And again, for the 3,000th time, it's trusting the process and allowing it to play out. That is so cool. And it's such a good mindset shift to be like, all right, well, you know what? Either way, this is what I was going to have to deal with. So fuck it. We got to figure out how that's going to happen for me. That's so cool. I love it. What would you say? You mentioned your, what you tell your clients. What would you say is like something that you see most people struggle with and the advice that you give for them?
A lot of the time with women, it's relationships. And it will be they're in something that doesn't feel great and they know it could be better, but they maybe don't have that confidence within themselves to either be on their own or to let go of it and see what else might be out there. So I do see a lot of that. And that's not even necessarily just women. I just typically coach more women than men, but with if it's not relationships, it can even be like jobs, things like that. It's just a lot of the time something is not working and the person is struggling with it and it's not making them happy and they don't feel great, but they struggle with the letting go part because it's that trust of, well, what am I going to do? What else is there? Because I think, and this was, you know, I did the same thing. I built my whole life around this person and I thought, well, this is it. And then when it's ripped away from me, I'm like, well, what's going to happen? It's all going to go wrong. And I didn't think, okay, this is great. Now I can build new stuff. I didn't think like that. So I think a lot of the time we struggle with, well, this is what I've created. This is my plan. Don't mess it up. And I want it like this. And just the thought of taking it away or changing it, it's like, no. It's fine. It's fine. When it's not. But yeah, I think I just see a lot of times people are struggling with something and they don't feel great. And sometimes it's other things, but they don't necessarily want to look at it being the other thing. So yeah, they just kind of keep struggling.
I like that you say that about the plan too, because I mean that was like I was so bad at that it's like you create this plan in your head for yourself, and when it doesn't follow how you want it to play out, it's just like so upsetting. But you know, allowing again the universe to play out and do whatever it's supposed to do, and just kind of rolling with the punches. It's kind of like I always think like people always ask like, do you follow fate or do you like take your own course and try to
like you're gonna get either you make things happen or things happen.
Yes, exactly. And I just really feel like it's both, that it's like, you know, you allow fate to happen, you allow things to fall into your life, but then you choose what to do with them. And then if they leave, then you know, you choose how to carry yourself from that and deal with it from that. So that's cool.
Yeah. I agree. I was going to say it's both. Even what you said about the podcast, like you had the idea of the podcast, it's then up to you to start thinking of a name, to do this, to get the mic, to ask me. Like that's all on you. Right. But the universe will connect you with all the people that you need. But it's up to you to get up and to get on with it. And I think we all do have these ideas and things and plans, but it depends. Yeah, it does. It depends on you if you're going to act on it. But if you do act on it, I definitely believe that the universe meets you more than halfway. It's just that taking that first step.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I like it. Well, to wrap things up, I like to play a game with my guests called Kinda Toxic, Kinda Well, speaking into that same idea that, you know, as good as people's lives look and as healed as they may seem, there's obviously things that we all kind of screw up on once in a while or lean into the toxic once in a while. But I find that a lot of the time when I'm asking these very healed people these questions, they typically have healed answers. So if like, however you want to answer the question, whatever insight you want to give while I ask the questions, by all means, I would love it. But I have these questions if you're down to play.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay.
What or who are you jealous of?
Oh, that's a good one. What or who am I jealous of? I think in all honesty, I'm not jealous of anything or anyone, because I think a few years ago, I read this thing that you can either be jealous or you can look at them and think, like I basically be like, oh, thank you for that. If it's something I want, I say, oh, thank you, because you're showing me it's all like what I'm going to have. So I think truthfully answering that, I'm not jealous of anything.
I love that. I've said that, and you're probably like the second or third person who I've asked that question that had that answer. And it's just like, it's so true. I love it that you can look to them for things that you want in your own life. Love it. When is the last time you people pleased instead of doing or saying what you really wanted?
Oh, do you know what? I tell everybody, I literally say to my brother, like, no, don't do that. And then I do. He said, well, you just did this. And I'm like, yeah. Mine will be in terms of work. I try and fit all my clients in. I'm always back to back. That will probably be my way of doing it. In my personal life, no. And I am really good with boundaries and things like that. But I think I do probably people please coming in a work sense, like just trying to fit everybody in, or doing more than probably I need to do, but just doing it because I just do it. That's probably it in work.
Love it. When are you selfish?
All the time. When am I selfish? Probably in a good way. Like, I'm quite selfish in terms of like, this is my time and I'm good. Yeah, this is what I'm doing with it. I think maybe with my time, but in a good way.
Absolutely. Do you do something specific, or you just mean being able to, focus on yourself and care for yourself?
Mostly focusing on myself and that, but I think it will be, so in the evening I always have a bath. I like candles, I have a bath, I've had a podcast on or a book, like that is my time. And that's just how it is. And I say to the kids, you get ready for bed and you can chill, but that's my time and I'm going in the bath. I'm not talking to you, I'm in the bath.
Love that. I love it.
That. Yeah.
Cool. What do you find yourself overthinking about?
Oh, do you know what? I've always got about 5,000 tabs open in my head, and I don't necessarily think I overthink, but I'm always jumping around. And I like the other night I was up at 2 a.m. and I get so many ideas, either like ideas for projects, ideas for a business, career ideas. Like I'm always, just pinging around with things. I don't think I overthink anything, because I've just don't do that anymore. But I think I'm always just, my thoughts I'm just always thinking of different things.
Okay, thank you for that, because that just changed my life. I always think that I'm overthinking everything, and it's 100% that I have 3,000 tabs open and I'm jumping around.
Yeah.
What is a should you have let go of?
A should? What's a should I? How do you mean?
Like, what is something that you always felt like, oh, I should be doing this, or I should be going out with my friends, or I should be whatever?
Probably that I should be like married by now. I mean, I'm 33 this year, and I think in my mind, especially when I was in a longer relationship, I imagined I'd be married and have kids and that type of. I have kids, but like more kids. That's probably the only one. Everything else I've definitely handed over to the universe, and whatever comes my way, I'm grateful and I'm enjoying my whole life journey. But that was probably my only one where I thought, even this morning I woke up, it's Valentine's Day, and I was like, oh.
Duh.
That probably that one, that I should be with somebody, especially and that whole thing with age. I think women, we do that a lot. Like, oh, I'm getting on. What if I want to have more kids and it's gonna be this? I think that's probably my own one. Like, the person will come when they're ready.
Amen. What makes you quick to get angry?
Oh, I think I get quite overstimulated in the day. So if I'm really busy and I'm back to back and I'm rushing around and I'm doing 101 things, and it'll be something like, say I've asked the kids to do something and then I walk in and the scooter bangs me in the leg and then something, and it's just like chaos, and I'm like, oh my gosh. That's so generally weird. I'm very unbothered person, but it'll probably just be like the noise and the telly and the scooter and the kids and the phone's ringing, and it'll just be a lot of things all at once.
I relate to that. And the being overly stimulated. So true.
Yes.
What are you afraid of?
I've had a few people ask me this, and I really mean it when I say I'm not afraid of anything, because I have really tried to search for this. I've tried to find an answer, and I'm being really serious when I say nothing. Nothing that I've so far come up with or up against, or nothing.
That's kick-ass. I love that. That's so cool. Just because you trust yourself, or what?
Yeah. Because I think if your mindset is always like mine is always that this is supposed to be happening, and it'll be this or better, and even if it's not good, it's going to be fine. So I think I can't really fear anything. Plus, I just don't think I have it in me anymore to be anxious. I think I just don't, it's not in there anymore. I can't even find it if I want to get anxious about something.
I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you not have empathy for?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think in social work, because I'm back in that now, I think there's a lot of times where I'll meet parents and, they're really not doing a great job. They're not being great with their kids, and they're not actually providing, what they should be. And they will often kind of say all of these things to me, and I think like, okay, yeah, but these are your kids, like these should be a priority. I think that's probably my only time in my day where I feel like I'm not, I don't know, probably that, just that. Yeah. Because I've been there and I do fully get it, but I don't know, I think sometimes I've seen people make a lot of excuses, and it's like, okay, fine, but like are you trying? Mm-hmm. Just maybe in that sense.
I can so picture that coming from you too, being like, hi, I did it, so I don't have empathy for you. Figure it out.
And I think I don't want that to come across like, because I've done it and I don't. But I always will help people, always, and I always fully get it. But I think,
I get it. I know what you're saying. If you could give one piece of advice to someone trying to improve themselves or become more well than toxic, what would it be?
Oh, good question. I think own your toxicity and just jump headfirst into wellness. Do as much as, just have it as scatty as you can. Try it all, do it all, and give yourself time and space. Separate yourself and just do as much as you possibly can in that direction and see what works.
Amazing. I love it. Where can people find you?
So nowhere. No, I'm joking. I'm on Instagram. I have an Instagram Magic Elephant there, but I'm going to take a social media break for a little while, so I probably won't be doing anything on there. But yeah, Magic Elephant on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like you and I have very similar mindsets, and I really appreciated talking to you. I really enjoyed hearing your journey, and I think you're really going to help my listeners, and you've helped me. So it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.